right this moment?
I've been thinking a lot about the nominees.
Me too. Me too. Why do you, well, we know why the left is going wild about this, but let me ask you about Pete Hegseth. Why is it, or how do they frame this so that he, in their narrative, is not qualified for the position of, of Secretary of Defense? How is that the case?
Well, in their mentality, I mean, if you are a company man, and the way that you are qualified is if you serve the company. So, if you are a creature of the Pentagon, if you are someone who has been a career civil servant who has served the bureaucracy up and down the ranks, then you're only qualified if you have paid your dues by steadily, incrementally rising up through the ranks of the organizational structure. Pete Hegseth served honorably. He won multiple Bronze Stars during his tour of service overseas in both Iraq and Afghanistan, but he is not a company man. He is not of, by, and for the Pentagon. He is indeed something of an outsider. I mean, he is a Fox News host, a popular host. He is someone who was formerly executive director of Concerned Veterans for America, which is an outside conservative veterans advocacy organization there. And he represents a threat to the status quo, which, by the way, is the entire point of the whole MAGA phenomenon.
That is,
If yeah.
that's the crazy thing is that Donald J. Trump was elected to do exactly this very thing, to dismantle the deep state wherever it exists, the administrative state, to overturn the tables, and to bring truth and justice and transparency, and to take down, I mean, to eliminate the overhead of this massive government bureaucracy with Elon. So it seems to me that they should expect this and that they should be able to discuss it in terms that are real. This is what Donald J. Trump's mandate looks like, Pete Hegseth.
Yeah, I mean, to me, Pete Hegseth, along with Matt Gaetz, are the two most MAGA picks that Donald
Yes.
Trump has made thus far. You arguably might throw Tulsi Gabbard into the mix there, but I think she's a little more complicated. So to me, Gates and Hegseth really kind of define what MAGA means, which is you're coming in like a bulldozer from the outside, and you're going in to try to shake up the existing bureaucracy. The goal of nominating someone like Pete Hegseth for Secretary of Defense or Matt Gaetz for Attorney General, the goal is not to play the Washington game. The goal is not to make nice with defense contractors. The goal is not to make nice with line prosecutors and woke U.S. Attorney's office. No, the goal is to shake things up. And you know what? Guess what? The people have given Donald Trump and the Republican Party under his leadership, they have given them a mandate to do exactly that, to shake things up. There's a lot of unfinished business from Donald Trump's first term. The border wall is not yet complete. The bureaucracies are not quite shaken up. The swamp, frankly, is not fully drained, but there's a lot of work left to do. And I take some solace in seeing a lot of these picks thus far. I think it is very much headed in the right direction. There's obviously a lot of massive picks that have not been named yet when it comes to a lot of the economic positions: Treasury Secretary, Commerce Secretary, Fed Chair, Labor Secretary. There's a lot of pieces of the puzzle that have not been put into place yet, but I am very heartened by what I am seeing thus far. And Pete Hegseth in particular, I just think is a tremendous pick. I actually have a new article at the Daily Mail that I was really kind of singing his praises there. I think that he's exactly the kind of person that we need to try to reverse the double-digit % decline in recruitment for all the branches of the military, Army, Navy, and Air Force alike. He's the guy I think who could turn that recruitment ship around, which is absolutely indispensable if we want America to be a first-rate power in this century.
If you look at Pete, he's a graduate of Princeton and Harvard. He's got years of, well, tours and medals from Iraq and Afghanistan, and he's a brilliant speaker. Why would George Washington be more qualified, or for that matter, because, I'm looking at contrast, Lloyd, sorry,
Austin.
Austin, thank you. I want to say Donovan for some reason. Lloyd Austin, why would he be qualified? By the way, I didn't know he had a degree in counseling. Lloyd Austin, that was really weird when I looked that up. Degree in counseling. And then you've got George Washington, who basically started learning how to be a surveyor as a teenager, ends up coming up through the ranks. He leads us to victory in war, but then he becomes the president of the United States. By their metric, the one that they're portraying to us, Washington was not qualified to be either the Secretary of Defense, if there were one at that point, or President of the United States. So, but that's really not what they're worried about, is it?
No, that's not what they're worried about at all. I mean, they're using qualifications as basically just a smear. I mean, the notion that that if someone had the relevant quote unquote qualifications, that they were nominated by Donald Trump, they would find some other reason to not confirm them. I mean, that's exactly what's going on here. I mean, you probably could be a five-star general. You probably could be a five-star general, but if Donald Trump nominates you to be the Secretary of Defense, I have zero doubt whatsoever that people like Elizabeth Warren are going to find some fig leaf to go glom onto and to find a reason for opposing the nomination. So that obviously is exactly what is going on here. But look, I guess just staying on this topic of the nominees. I mean, one thing that I just find deeply inspiring, frankly, is how young and in touch with the younger generations a lot of these nominees are. People like Pete Hegseth, Matt Gaetz, Tulsi Gabbard, Vivek Ramaswamy, Elise Stefanik at the UN. Yeah, they're all in their 40s. J.D. Vance, of course, just turned 40 years old a few months ago. So to me, looking at the pieces of the puzzle that we've seen thus far, it seems to me like Donald Trump is making something of a legacy intergenerational play. He's not making a play just for the next 4 years. Yes, I think he has ambitions to finish the job of draining the swamp and making America great again, but I think part of that vision extends even past his presidency into the future. I think that's what he's looking at here when he's looking at a lot of these younger picks.
That's very, very wise. And I've wondered if he was going to take that tact because, you know, as a business person, you always want a plan for when you step down or you pass away. And he's only got 4 years. It's enough to do what he has to do, but to not have an accession plan in a way set in place and harden the win because we've made massive inroads in young males, minority groups. It's just and sort of eliminating the racial division of politics that the Democrats have relied upon, and the Jewish. That's more ethnic than religious, but instead of that paradigm, which is their paradigm of choice, we're the working class versus the elites. And if, but we can't sit on our laurels in terms of the groundwork we have to continue doing. We can fix the swamp, but it could be rebuilt pretty easily if we haven't built that coalition stronger for the next years to come. And I'm hoping J.D. Vance is our next president. So is that,
Well,
does that make sense?
yeah. So look, I wrote a column back in March, all the way back in March, 4 months before the vice president was announced, and my column was titled "Vice President J.D. Vance," and my column was intended to try to make the case that J.D. Vance was the best pick for Donald Trump when it came to winning the Electoral College, when it came to winning those Rust Belt swing states, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania there. And then after Donald Trump named J.D. Vance, I wrote a follow-up column basically saying that J.D. Vance is what I refer to him as the chosen one. And I say this as someone who has been a friend of J.D.'s actually for some time now. I know him in a personal capacity. I think very highly of the guy. I think he's brilliant. I think America has now seen
I
his
love
brilliance here. And,
J.D. Vance.
and,
Oh,
and
but by the way, this is a small thing. My 89-year-old mother, once she saw J.D. Vance, it was like, if J.D. Vance is, if he's on screen, she's gonna watch that guy. She's just
yeah.
enamored with him. Why? Because it's like Donald Trump. He embodies something in the way he communicates and what's in his heart and his soul. And it comes through so loud and clear. He was supposed to be weird. What? This guy is rock solid. And I was
Yeah.
praying before the nomination or his selection. We prayed so hard in my family that he would be the one. So continue, though. I interrupted.
Yeah, so he's very well spoken. And by the way, my wife is very similar to your mother. I mean, whenever JD Vance comes on TV, my wife is always tuning in and watching as well. Um, but JD Vance has an opportunity, I think, if indeed he is our next president of the United States, which it's a little early, but I will say that I hope that he is. Then I think that there really is an opportunity here to make the broader MAGA America First movement this defining movement of this part of the 21st century in the same way that the Ronald Reagan movement was the defining movement for about, broadly speaking, a 15-20 year period of the late 20th century, the same way that FDR's New Deal was the defining political movement of its era for another 15-20 year stretch. I think that the J.D. Vance generational play And again, there's so many young people in this cabinet. Who knows what kind of roles they might be playing for some time now there. So it's all looking quite auspicious. It's all looking quite good for the future of the Republican Party more generally, and the MAGA America First vision. Again, we're gonna eventually have to start seeing some policies. God willing, we'll start getting a flurry of executive orders come day one. We'll see a congressional agenda with Speaker Mike Johnson and the Senate that is fully aligned there. I have some questions about John Thune, not his biggest fan in the Senate, but God willing, we will have a lot of the moving parts operating on the same page. We'll start stacking the courts with constitutionalist judges. We'll finally get a secure border there. And I, for one, find myself just very happy here. I mean, we're about a week and a half since the election happened, and honestly, I'm still on cloud nine about it.
I know I'm walking this far above the ground. I just never touch it. You know, I have been for months thinking about Matt Gaetz, thinking, oh, this guy's got to be in the cabinet. And this is the one that is sending the liberals, the leftists, the socialists, the whatevers, the woke off the cliff. They're going insane. Forget Pete Hegseth. Forget that, they're calling Tulsi, saying terrible things about her, and so many others. This is the one that they're going to want to die on.
Well, there's a few reasons for that. One is the DOJ main justice has been what I refer to as the Democrat lawfare complex. That has been their go-to bureaucracy, their go-to agency for a very long time now. Not just throughout the Biden-Harris administration. That's how you got Special Counsel Jack Smith and all the lawfare. We know that. But DOJ was also the agency within Donald Trump's own administration the first time that launched the internal coup. I mean, that's how you got Jim Comey, that's how you got Rod Rosenstein, and that's how you got the Mueller report. I mean, the Russia collusion delusion was ultimately laundered through the United States Department of Justice. That was Peter Strzok and Andy McCabe and all of these hooligans there. So I think it is very clear that Donald Trump wanted to make sure that in announcing who his attorney general was going to be, who the top law enforcement official of the United States is going to be, he wanted to make very, very clear that this was not going to happen again, that we are not going to have a coup inside the Trump administration yet again. To me, above all, that is the message that the Matt Gaetz pick sends. And again, it's this threat of just being a total outsider there that I think has a lot of people just totally quaking in their boots. But again, he's not a company man. He's not. Frankly, he only practiced law for like 2.5 years. But he's not. He's not there because of his knowledge of Supreme Court jurisprudence. I went to law school. I clerked for a federal appeals judge. I can tell you that he's not there for that. And guess what? He doesn't have to be, because that's not actually the qualification of the job. You'll have plenty of good attorneys who can do the actual job of arguing.
Well, how many attorneys are in the Department of Justice? There's got to be hundreds. Yeah. Do you think he will be confirmed? And is it a function of being confirmed or during the recess, or what's your prognostication?
I'll be very honest with you. I do not think the votes are currently there. So what that means is that one of two things has to happen. They're going to have to exert a tremendous effort to try to go Senate office to Senate office and ultimately try to actually convince enough senators on the Senate Judiciary Committee and then ultimately the full Senate to actually get him confirmed. That's going to require a lot of political capital. Or on the other hand, I guess the easier way to do that is what many people are already discussing, is to use a recess appointment. Now, that's something that has not typically been done for a high-ranking cabinet official like the Attorney General. You typically invoke the recess appointments power for lower-level political appointees. Having said that, there is nothing in the Constitution that would prohibit it, so it is the law, and I'm generally a fan of, if the law exists and there's no reason not to do it and it benefits you, then you probably ought to take advantage of it there. I will note that there was a 2014 U.S. Supreme Court case called NLRB versus Canning, where the conservative justices, Justice Scalia, Thomas, Alito, and so forth, did come out with a more limited view of the recess appointments power, that if that case were to ultimately get back to the Supreme Court, that could potentially be a constitutional problem for a recess power like the one Trump, I think, is thinking of right now. But there's a lot of steps to get there. Let's kind of just play this out in the meantime. God willing, if it's a pick Donald Trump wants, they won't have to actually go down that rabbit hole, and the votes will actually be there in the Senate.
Well, that's going to start being my family prayer then. I'm going to be praying for Matt Gaetz, and I think every one should do the same. You've got a book coming out. I'm so excited to read it. It looks just brilliant. And I want to have you back to do a deep dive on that. It's called Israel and Civilization. Best title ever. Tell us a little bit about it and just wet our whistle with it.
Sure. Yeah. So the book is called Israel and Civilization: The Fate of the Jewish Nation and the Destiny of the West. It's going to be out in March 2025 at the latest. We'll see if maybe we can even get it out a little sooner than that. But right now, it's coming out in March 2025. So the book, as the title and subtitle indicate, are really not just about the state of Israel, but also just about the nation of Israel, the people of Israel. It's ultimately making an argument that the Jewish people have been indispensable to the formation of what we today call Western civilization, for the very simple reason, as I argue, that Western civilization began at Mount Sinai. That was the origins of Western civilization as we know it. And I basically argue in the book that you're not going to have this thing called Western civilization without the Jewish people, and by extension the Jewish state. And what that's going to require is a Jewish-Christian alliance to save the West from what I identify as the three forces that threaten to destroy it, which in no particular order are wokeism, Islamism, and global neoliberalism. And that basically is the alliance that has to happen there. We need Jews and Christians, one and the same, to be in this fight together to preserve what we have here. Ultimately, that counter-civilizational fight to turn back the tide against those three forces that I just identified is going to have to start right here. It's going to have to start right here in these United States. It's definitely not going to start in Europe. There's no other place for it to start. It has to start here. And that basically is what the book is. If I don't say so myself, and by the way, the book's available for pre-order, but if I don't say so myself, it's timed quite nicely for the second Trump administration to start doing
It's
exactly that, actually.
perfect. Are you, as interviewed Ambassador David Friedman recently on his book that I highly recommend. It's a very different book, but I ascribe to his prescription for Israel moving forward, rejecting the two-state, fantasy, and I won't go into that. I assumed, just because I just assumed that he would be appointed in Trump's next or second term. And then we have Mike Huckabee. Are you wishing it went a different way, or do you think that Mike Huckabee is going to be as strong an ambassador as David Friedman was?
So Ambassador Friedman is a friend. We actually live not too far from each other in South Florida. I've gotten dinner with him. I think very highly of him. I agree, broadly speaking, with his book when it comes to ending the two-state solution delusion. I actually have a lot of words on this in Chapter 8 of my own book. I see very similar, eye to eye, frankly, with Ambassador Friedman on this. Having said all that, I'm not upset at all with the pick. In fact, I think Mike Huckabee is a fantastic pick. I'm not entirely sure that I could think of anyone better than Mike Huckabee. I think he was basically born to do this role, and I think I'll actually one up you. I mean, as an observant Jew, which David Friedman is as well. I love the fact that we have a God-fearing Christian in this role. We've had a lot of Jews in this role, but it's also crucial. It's crucial for Jewish-Christian relations. It's crucial for U.S.-Israel relations. It's crucial for biblical nations more generally, I think, to have a Christian in this role there, especially at a time when the polls say that the younger generation of Christians are not necessarily always